Hello, everyone. It's Monday, October 24th, and we have an exciting few demos for you today and some updates, followed by some scheduled discussion topics. So let's get started. I believe the team from Patroni is here. Are you here, Patroni? I see Solando. Is your audio hooked up? We can't hear you. Okay, I'll give them a minute to figure that out. While we're waiting, just as an announcement, we are meeting the day before KubeCon at the Sheraton in the Jefferson A room. I'll send an email out about that. The SIG-Apps meeting will be at 4:30, and it'll be meet and greet and unconference style. So I'm really excited we all get a chance to meet. If you're going to be at KubeCon, please feel free to come and join us, meet up, and we'll talk about some things there. All right, is the Patroni team ready now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'll let you share your screen and take it away from here.
Okay, let me help with that. So select a window and application that you want to share. Oh well, I cannot. System preferences, whiteboard. All right.
Do you see our screen?
Yes, we can.
Can you see us? Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. It says it's the zoom.us browser.
All right, thanks. So basically today we are going to show you the help chart and how it works of Patroni, which is the highly available Postgres manager. So this is basically the way to run multiple Postgres instances on Kubernetes and make sure that if some of these instances die, especially the master, Postgres is a single master system, then it will be the switch will happen automatically to the replica system. So basically, can you see the terminal?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. So very good. So now the first thing that we're going to do is to actually create the Helm chart of Patroni. So for this, we're going to execute this command. So we're going to install Patroni, and we are going to create a new cluster. I will make the font bigger. So the cluster will be named row 42, and let's try it. Yeah, so it basically created this new cluster, and we can actually find out by watching the kubectl whether the instances are there or not. So now you can see there is the etcd, which is being created, and there is also one instance of Patroni that is already running. So we have to wait until all instances of Patroni will be there. Meanwhile, there are some instructions that basically allow us to connect to the databases. So let's try to do that. Exactly. So first I will do this prompt, and I will say bash. This should give me the bash prompt. Yes. So now we can see that some of the instances are already running. Yeah, container creating. Right. So what is interesting is that it doesn't have any spiller role here. So we have etcds, we have Patronies. Okay, so now they're all created, and now we have one of the containers that is elected as a master. So this is basically the one that accepts the writes, and the other containers are currently acting in a replica role. So let's try to connect it. We already got the SQL prompt. And the next thing we are going to do is to actually execute this command. No, first we have to export this. Okay, let's do it back. So basically, first we have to export this password, the PG password admin that is provided also by this appliance, because it is protected by the password and the password is created automatically. So what we have to do is to create it first, and what we have to do next is to delete the old deployment. We can create another one with a new name. So this one will be equal2 image Postgres, and yeah. So I'm exporting this password to the PSQL node that I'm running, so that it can use this password for connection. So now I do this PSQL-u admin, right? Okay, something like this. Okay, so it works. Now we have a prompt for Postgres. We connect it to our cluster, and we can really try to see what is the role. Writing PG is in recovery. It was false, means that it is not writing in recovery, meaning that it is in the master. So we can do it by creating a table, just a simple table with one ID. And we can write something in this table. Value is 1. Right. So now we can see that this is in the master and it is writable. So what is all about? It's all about what happens if the master dies. So now we will simulate this case when the master crashes, and then we will see if we can still query the data and that the data that we just inserted is there and it is intact. So first, what I want to show is to show the system that is used by Patroni in order to store the cluster configuration. The system is called etcd, and Patroni stores a lot of keys in this etcd. So what we want to do is to actually query this etcd by using the etcd-ctl. Oh, sorry, the wrong terminal. Yes. So we're writing etcd-ctl and looking at all keys that are here in this cluster. So one can see that there are keys for the leader, which basically points at which node is currently the leader. So we can query this key as well. And we can even put the watch here. So now we query the leader key, and we can see that the leader node is rel42 patroni _3. This is exactly the node that is shown by kubectl to have the label of the master. So now let's kill the master by doing this kubectl delete pod and supplying the pod that we want to delete and see what happens. So the Patroni 3 is deleting, so we see it's terminating, and we also see that the etcd has switched the leader to Patroni _0, and Patroni 0 is currently the master, and the deleted node Patroni 3 has been replaced with another one that is currently running in replica role. So we can connect using the same credentials, so the address has not changed. This service is the same, and we can also query our table. Yeah, we can see the same amount of rows, the same rows, so we can try to insert another one. Yeah, we can see that Patroni automatically did the failover. It shows us the new node, and the old the old node has joined the cluster as the replica. So we are running the same amount of nodes, and the cluster can tolerate the death of the master. Well, with replicas it will be the same. but the replicate will be just replaced with another replica. What I also want to show is some tools that we have in Patroni. We have the command that is called Patroni CTL that allows to manage the cluster and allows to show the status of the cluster. For that, I will execute another command. So, yeah, this is the one that I'm going to execute. It basically goes to the node itself and runs Patroni CTL list using the configuration that is automatically supplied by the Docker image underlying the Helm chart, and it lists the name of the cluster, which is rel42 Patroni. So what happens if we run this? So right now we also see the table that is similar to the table that you can get from kubectl that lists all the clusters that we are running. And one cluster that is the leader, it has this star that basically denotes that this is exactly the leader cluster. And we can compare this with the table that we have in kubectl. Yeah, that also shows that Patroni 0 is the leader. So while this one allows you to show the status of the cluster, Patroni CTL has some cool commands. So let's look at how can we do the managed failover. Instead of letting Patroni do the failover automatically if the master dies, we can force Patroni to switch the master. We can do it for maintenance. For instance, if we want to upgrade the master to the new minor version of Postgres, then we can switch the master status to a certain replica, then upgrade the former master, and then switch it back. For that, we have the special command that is called failover. So what we do is Patroni CTL exec. Also, we go to the node itself and run Patroni CTL failover with the same configuration and with the name of the cluster. So let's see. By default, it will ask us some question. Unable to connect to the server on TCP, so let's try again. Sometimes it's shaky here. Yeah, good. So this is the current master. It just asks us for confirmation that we are sane and that we know what we are doing. Yes, I say this is the master. Now it asks for the candidates. Yeah, and yeah, basically we can choose any of them, or we can let Patroni choose the one that is most fit. So we can say, let's choose some of them, choose one of them automatically. Yeah, and now it asks when to do the manual failover, because what we can say is that we don't want to have manual failover immediately, but at the time when we don't have a peak activity, for instance, during the night. So we can say, please do the failover, please schedule the failover at 2 a.m. For our demo, we are not going to wait until 2 a.m., so we will do this immediately by just pressing enter. And now it asks for the final confirmation. So it asks whether we really want to do the failover or not. So let's do it. And let's keep an eye on another screen which shows us the current master. So I do the failover. And now we can immediately see that the master switched to the replica role and the new master is running. So I can confirm this by running Patroni CTL list. Yeah, we can see that the replica has switched. There is the master status has switched. There is a new master, and we can see that the old master will come up. So now it was stopped, but now it's running, and it's currently running as a replica. Right. So do we have some time, or are we already out of time? Because I can show another command.
Feel free to do so. I'm really excited about this demo, so please continue.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. So Patroni CTL is quite a powerful tool. It has an ability to restart your master without losing the master status. So sometimes you want to restart your Postgres database, for instance, to apply some configuration parameters that requires restart. And you also don't want, so what happens normally when you do the restart, when you stop the database, Patroni will detect this immediately, but then it will release its master lock, and it will let some other node to become the master. So in case your database has crashed, Patroni first will elect the new master, and then it will bring up the crashed database in the replica role. This also will happen if you just restart Postgres database without informing Patroni that you want to do this. So if you want to restart the database but keep the master status on the cluster, on the server that you are restarting, then there is a special command Patroni that is called restart, not surprisingly. So instead of doing the Patroni CTO failover, we will do the restart. And we want to supply the node that we want to restart. Otherwise, Patroni will ask you whether you want to restart all the nodes that you're running. This is usually not what we want to. So we will supply the current master, rel 42 Patroni 2, which is the master here. So we run this command. And OK, interesting. After some time, we get this error. So let's see, Patroni CTL restart. Patroni, okay, let's do it like this. 42 Patroni, and the node is 2. Yeah, so just the nodes are named with the underscores instead of dashes. This can be seen in the Patroni CTL output. So now it found that I have chosen rel 42 Patroni 2 and says and asks whether I want to restart it or not. So I say yes, this is what I want. It asks so there is a feature in Patroni that allows you to restart Postgres nodes that are less than a certain version. This is used specifically for upgrading Postgres to the new minor version. What you can do, for instance, is to install this new minor version to all hosts, and then say, okay, please restart all nodes that still run in the old version. And it will automatically restart only those nodes that run in the old version so that they pick up the new one, and it will not touch anything that is already running the new version. So currently, it asks me whether I want to supply this version. I don't. I want to restart exactly this node without regarding the version. And similar to the failover, we also have the scheduled, similar to scheduled failover, we have the feature that is called scheduled restarts, which also allows you to restart the node in a certain time. Again, this is useful for the maintenance. You can opt to restart your nodes to apply some Postgres parameters at like 2 a.m., for instance, when you don't receive much traffic on your database. So we also say now, and what happens is it initiates the restart, but see, the master keeps running as a master. There is no failover, no switchover, nothing. So if I run Patroni CTL list again, then we can see that the master keeps running, and basically the master is restarted. What we can do is to try to select from the table on master. pSQL says that connection has terminated. This is true because we restarted the database, but it was able to reset the connection and it was able to connect. So we try again. And now we can see that the data is still there and everything works as we want it to work. So this is it, basically. This is what we wanted to show you in this demo. And yeah, we would be happy if you have any questions. Or I don't know how this works, but yeah, if you have any questions, you can file the issues on GitHub, or you can ask questions now if it is permitted.
So before we take any questions, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about Solando? And by the way, great demo, very thorough. Thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So yeah, I thought this is already part of this announcement of this meeting. My name is Alexei. Yeah, I'm here with my colleague, Martin. We both work for Solando. Yeah, and Solando is a quite cool technical company. So it's a tech company. What we are is one of the major e-commerce companies in Europe. So one of the major fashion companies in Europe, but we also quite a big tech companies with a lot of cool technologies like Docker, Kubernetes, and AWS, and Scala, Java, and so on. So a lot of different things. And we also use Postgres for most of our data. And basically combining Postgres and cloud led us to development of Patroni in order to run cloud databases as cattle and not as pets. So basically tolerating the failover, tolerating the termination of servers in the cloud, which you cannot predict when this happens. Right, so yeah, I'm from the database team, and Martin here is from the team that is working with Kubernetes. Right.
Awesome, thank you. And at this time, we have a minute or two for questions. So does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Matt Fisher here from Deis. I'm just wondering about, is there a disaster recovery scenario for if the entire Patroni cluster becomes unavailable, is there a way to recover from backups, or is there some documentation on recovering from a total fail or cluster loss, either etcd or Patroni itself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. So let's start with the Patroni. In the helm chart that we currently have, there is no backups to the S3 or to the Google Compute, no Google Compute, but to the Google Cloud Storage. So currently it's not doing backups. But Patroni itself supports base backups. And what we do in production is running the backups on S3. And Patroni also supports restoring from S3 if there are no nodes that are currently running. So what could happen for us is that the whole cluster dies, but then because we have the backups and WoW files that are stored on S3, then we can replay it and continue running with the same cluster. It is currently not implemented in the Helm chart, but we are looking for actually adding this feature because we also needed to run things in production on top of Kubernetes. This is the first part of the question. The second part, what happens if etcd dies? So if etcd dies and you are able to redeploy etcd with the same, that actually points to the same DNS name, then Patroni will happily pick up this etcd and continue running. But meanwhile, as long as etcd is not available, Patroni will switch to read-only mode, so you won't be able to write to any of the nodes because there is no information about which node is the master, and Patroni tries hard to avoid the split brain condition when you have more than one master. So in this case, you will continue to run as read-only until you redeploy the etcd. So did I answer?
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. We probably have time for one more question. Does anybody else have a question? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Thanks again, and feel free to add your contact information in the agenda if you'd like. Let me send over a link to that in the chat. And otherwise, there is a Patroni Helm chart in the Kubernetes charts repository in the incubator directory. With that, I'll move on to the next demo. Okay, so thank you. Matt Boersma is here with us today from Deis, and he's going to be demoing deis-workflow for us. So Matt, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about deis-workflow and then demo. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Cool. Happy Monday, everybody. My name's Matt Boersma. I work at Deis, working on deis-workflow. You probably have heard of Deis, but otherwise, if you haven't, we do lots of Kubernetes-oriented stuff. Workflow is essentially our first product. You probably all know Helm pretty well. We have several other things going on. So Workflow is an open source Heroku-style platform as a service that you can install on your Kubernetes cluster. And then you've got a magic sort of Git endpoint that you can push your code to. And in most cases, Workflow is smart enough to figure out what type of project it is, what the language is, build it for you, deploy it through Kubernetes, and set up routing. And that's all you have to worry about as a developer. You can sort of ignore the whole reality of Kubernetes if you want to start out that way. And then once your app is actually successfully deployed, we have a command line tool called Deis that lets you get logs, scale it up, get information, do all sorts of good stuff. So I've already installed, let me share my screen here. Okay, so just to save time, basically, I've already installed Workflow on a Minikube cluster that I just fired up a little while ago. just to show you here, we're using Helm Beta, which is great, came out last week. You can see I installed deis-workflow using Helm Beta. This is probably one of the more complicated charts that Helm has had to deal with, and it did great. And here you can see everything's running. So one of the paths for installing stuff on workflow, and probably the most common one that people start out with, is purely Heroku style. You can almost alias deis or Heroku to deis, and things will just work. So what we've got here is just a really simple Go application with a proc file, which is the way that Heroku style apps work. And so I'm just gonna, well, actually first I have to register a user. I'm using a little macro here that both registered me with workflow and also uploaded a key. And then I'm gonna create an application which creates a local Git remote that points to workflow and also creates all the bookkeeping necessary on the server. I'm just gonna push my code over there. This could take a little while. It looks like it's going, oh good, we have a cache, so won't take that long. But and again, so this is probably the path of least resistance if you're already a Heroku shop or you're familiar with this workflow and you want to get off Heroku for whatever reason, save money, have a little more control over things. This will be pretty familiar to you. While that's going, just in the interest of saving time, I'm going to jump over to the next sort of way of deploying code, which is if you're a little more sophisticated organization, you may already be using containers, and so you may have a Docker file in your application. This is just something I've used a couple times for some kind of machine learning stuff I've been doing. This is Jupyter Notebook that a lot of you have probably seen. And there's a Docker file in the root. So if I push this code, let's create a separate application for this. If I push this code to the server, it's going to say, hey, I didn't see a proc file, but I do see a Docker file, and I know what to do with that. So it'll actually use, let's spell things correctly. It'll actually use the Docker file on the server to build my code, create a Kubernetes deployment, and set up routing for it, and magically everything will work. The build pack over here in this window, finished building. Now we're actually created the deployment. We're waiting for things to come up and pass health checks. Over here, it went a little faster. So this is already done. Let's go ahead and open this up. And deis open is just a convenience that fetches the URL from the server and opens a browser onto it. Oh, come on. It's kind of a fat application. So there we go. So people have probably seen Jupyter Notebook running before. This is one way to deploy it inside of Kubernetes. And then back here, okay. And so our build pack app has also finished. This one's not nearly as exciting. It's literally just a demo app, but I didn't have another sophisticated build pack app ready to go. So that's two ways of getting code in there, and you can probably see how, as long as ops has set up Kubernetes for you, your developers could kind of be oblivious to Kubernetes if that helps you get things done. And then essentially the final way to deploy code, and this is if perhaps you're a more sophisticated development organization and you're already producing Docker images, let's say from your applications, and you're probably pushing them through some kind of CI pipeline for testing. You can deploy that stuff essentially directly. You can say, let's create a new app. It doesn't really need a Git remote because I'm not pushing code to it. And we got pastry fireball. So you can use the deis pull command to just reference a Docker image out there on GCR or KIO or wherever directly. Let's say, what is it? KIO. So this is essentially the same app we had in the other window. I just went ahead and built it once and put it in a public registry. And I'm going to tell it to pull in the pastry fireball app. And there's not a lot of feedback here because essentially we're just pulling down a Docker image, waiting for it to arrive in the internal registry, and then creating a deployment that references it and spreading it out there. Okay, that was nice and fast. This should look pretty much like the previous app, yes. And let's see. Let's create a new, actually just to show that this isn't a pretend demo, let's open a notebook. There we go. So it really runs. And that's basically it. There's a lot of features I'm skipping over here in the interest of time, but certainly if we have time for questions, I'll be glad to talk about that. So I just wanted to take the last few minutes here to talk about where we're thinking of taking deis-workflow in the future. It's really, at this point, it's a stable, mature product, and we've got a growing number of people using it. We can see it's getting installed multiple times every day, and that a lot of those installations of workflow continue to run for weeks and months at a time. So that's telling us there's a lot of people who are actually using this to get work done, which is awesome. And we're definitely going to continue to improve it and fix bugs and add things to it. But and while it's a fully open source product, no strings attached, we still think it could be more useful to everybody here, essentially the people in the Kubernetes community. Not necessarily as it is right now, which is, you know, an essentially monolithic platform that lets you get stuff into Kubernetes, but maybe, you know, pieces of it, essentially key parts of it, might be stuff that we all here could use, you know, making our own pass or our own solution for deploying apps. So some of the components in workflow are already really useful as they are right now, and some of them could be there with just a little bit of work. We really want to do that work. We want to see the system take on new life, because really at this point it's been battle tested, and we're really proud of a lot of the Go code that's in there, and we think it could be used in other contexts. So we're kind of starting to imagine a future version of Deis that really is even more than it is right now. It's just gluing pieces together that come from different sources, and maybe our Kubernetes incubator or add-on projects, or maybe are purely third-party products. And so the final thing I wrote down here, forgive me for using my teleprompter. If you've ever tried out workflow and you've thought to yourself, you know, this is really close to what I need, but if I could just get rid of these pieces, or if I could sub in this piece for another piece that Deis already gave me, we'd really like to hear that feedback. We have some ideas about which components we'd like to let them fly free and see where they go, but really a couple good strong arguments from the people here could probably persuade us to change our priorities in a certain direction. So if any of that, what I was mumbling about just now, sounds interesting, we'd really like to work with you on moving and changing some of this code and making it more useful for you. So that's all I had written down, but I'm glad to take any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Borisma. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Matt Butcher just wrote, wow, 2 fabulous demos today. Great way to start the week. That's how I feel as well. All right. Any questions about workflow? And has anybody outside of the Deis team used parts of workflow from this group? Or any PaaS for that matter, actually, or built your own PaaS? All right, I'm just trying to gauge the audience.
I've used a whole heck of a lot of Cloud Foundry. So I can speak to that, but that doesn't really play into the Kubernetes space at this point. They use their own scheduling engine. But
Cool, yeah. Do you run into people who, or does anybody here run into people who are trying to build their own Heroku-style PaaS? I read a lot about this.
I think there are a lot of folks who want that. PaaS is still the big hot term, and so there was one that landed on the homepage of Hacker News the other day. That isn't a new one, but somehow landed on there again. But there's a number of them out there.
All right, yeah. So Matt, you asked our group for feedback on if we've used parts of workflow, or if they're just general feedback. So how should we organize around this? Should we create a thread on the mailing list?
That would be a great way to do it, sure.
Okay.
Or if people just want to email me directly or open an issue on any of the Deis/GitHub repos, we will find that as well. But yeah, probably the SIG-Apps mailing list would be the best place.
Okay, cool. Would you mind starting a thread and putting all your contact info and your social security number into that thread?
Credit cards. Love
Thank you. We'd really appreciate that.
You know, this got me thinking, Michelle. It might be worth there is no one place that kind of documents and records the different kinds of tools you can use with and on Kubernetes, right? To help you deploy and manage your applications. Like if I said, you know, what's the Jenkins plugin? Is there a drone plugin? Is there, you know, what can I use to do a PaaS type thing on top of Kubernetes? There's no place you can go for that, is there yet?
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of Googling.
It feels like it's too much Googling.
True.
That might be, and I don't know if anybody's interested in that kind of thing, but if somebody is, you know, it's probably something we can start to dig into as a group at some point, just to say, how do we communicate this kind of thing more clearly?
Yeah.
And I had an action on the developer note, by the way, that you know, how do we do that? And I totally failed to get that done in the last week. So I will take that on probably today, and it's, but we should really get that stuff going.
Absolutely. Okay, so, and there's something from Antoine in the chat. Is deis-workflow upgrade update, would that affect running apps? Now, Borisma, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I typed an answer, but I'll say it. The workflow upgrade procedure, you have to follow it closely, but it does mean apps don't, there's no downtime for the apps. Everything else goes away, but the routing layer stays intact.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, with that, thanks again, Matt Borisma, for your deis-workflow demo. And with that, we'll move into stand-ups and updates. So App Controller doesn't have an update today, but I believe the Helm folks do. So Matt Butcher, are you available to give us an update on Helm?
Yep. So we are working now on beta 2. We may consider releasing a beta 2 this week because we found and fixed a couple of bugs that the community has given us feedback they'd like to see rolled out very quickly. But things are going really well. We started out with, I think, 8 issues on the next beta milestone, and I think we're already down to like 3 or 4, even though we added some. We've got a bunch of PRs that didn't get merged on Friday because DNS went out, which meant Circle CI and the Go ecosystem and all that stuff had a hard time. So the first thing I did this morning was kick off a bunch of Circle CI jobs, but I expect that most of the things in the PR queue are going to pass and we'll get a bunch of things merged in today. So overall, things are going well. We've gotten some new contributions from some brand new contributors. That's fabulous. One thing I'd like to leave as an open question, if I might, is does anybody know here how long we will have 2 CLAs on Kubernetes repositories, or if there are any plans to drop the Google CLA now that we have the Linux Foundation CLA? I know that's presented several new contributors with what they feel, what we all feel like is yet one more barrier to being able to do, you know, a little documentation upgrade or fix a quick bug or something like that. So does anybody know?
Eric just mentioned in chat that there is a plan.
Okay. Do we have like a rough time frame? Are we talking weeks, months, or years? I'll wait. You can type in. Okay. Okay. So once everything is really for sure, so we're really more like just in the testing phase now, final testing phase now.
You said maybe a month. Okay.
All right, that's good. At least then if I can tell people, you know, this is a short-term temporary thing and it should, we deal with it for only another month or so, people I think will be more understanding. Okay, cool. Yeah, so the bottom line is things have been going pretty well and we are cranking through betas. We feel like we're making major progress on stability. So that's it for me. Are you going to have the charts team doing too?
If y'all are available, I don't know if Adnan has a conflicting meeting. Is Vic around? I don't think he is either. I think he has a conflicting meeting, maybe too. But I was in the charts chat the other day. So for those of us who don't know, there's a small group of us who just concentrate on making sure the charts repository is growing and getting feedback on maybe what we can do better and setting up CI. So we call those meetings very spontaneous, called charts chat. So in the last charts chat, we talked about a lot of things, but there was one thing that came up in particular. Since most of us in that meeting contribute to Helm and contribute charts, we were wondering what the onboarding experience is like. So when you Google Helm chart, or when you try to find a particular chart for something, when you're trying to onboard even to Helm itself, what is your experience like? And all of us work on these tools, so we're really biased. So I had mentioned that I would bring this up in SIG-Apps, and that's what I'm doing now. Does anybody here who hasn't maybe contributes to Helm or has contributed to Helm but doesn't mainly work on Helm or charts, do you have any feedback for us, something that you'd like to share right now and throw out there? Okay, cool. I'll take that as a no for now, and that's okay because I'm putting everyone on the spot. But I'll send out something on the mailing list about this, and we'll probably have to figure out and organize how to get feedback on the onboarding experience. But if this is something that you come by, or of someone who had trouble with a particular thing, in Helm or when it came to finding charts, please let us know on that list, and maybe I can put together a survey or something like that that we can share, because we're looking for feedback, and any feedback is helpful as we're moving towards stability and getting through the beta cycle. With that, I'll go ahead and open it up. For open discussion. Does anybody have something they'd like to talk about this week with the group? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, we can end early then. Again, feel free to post topics on these under scheduled discussion topics. Since there aren't any more today, we can just go ahead and end early. It's 12:43. Have fun with your extra 17 minutes. Thank you for joining, and this will be recorded and posted later today. Have a great day.